Revelation 2899. From the 27th of September 1943. Will to good, influence of the beings of light. Mask of the Adversary. The will to do good and to belong to God is the only decisive factor for good forces to approach a person and try to influence him. A will turned away from God will never draw these forces to itself, and bad forces will never gain power over a person who strives towards God. It is so understandable that God does not let the latter fall prey to the power of evil, that he himself spreads his hands protectively over them who desire him. The beings of light are powerful enough to ward off all evil from a person who demonstrates through his thoughts and intentions that he is averse to evil. The adversary's power is indeed great, but he only gains control over a person if he places himself in his hands by thinking and acting contrary to God, and then he disguises himself as a figure of light in order to beguile people who are still of dark spirit due to their will and do not recognize the adversary under the mask of good. But the one who aspires to God is not blinded by the deceptive light. He sees through the activity of the one who is out of darkness. Because the beings of light enlighten him about it, they illuminate his spirit and allow him to see into the weaknesses and infirmities of people who fall prey to this deceptive spirit. The person striving towards God should certainly constantly watch and pray so that he will not fall into temptation. And temptations are also permitted in order to test his willpower, in order to strengthen his power of resistance. Yet God will never allow the tempter himself to approach the human being in such a form that he will no longer be able to recognize him if his thoughts and intentions are legal. And in the same way the beings of light form a protective wall around the earthly person entrusted to them, who hands himself over to their guidance through conscious striving towards God. The power of evil over him is therefore only slight and only a danger when the human being himself slackens in his striving and turns his desire towards the world and its goods and pleasures. But then the good and evil forces will wrestle for the soul, and the strength of the beings of light is truly greater and protects the human being from complete apostasy. Yet the human being's will itself is always decisive, and therefore God's adversary need not be feared if this will is meant for God and unification with him. The working of the forces of light and darkness can certainly be distinguished and thus also recognized by its results. For bad forces will not determine people's good actions and the beings of light will not determine people's bad actions, and therefore you will recognize by the fruits under which influence a person is and therefore also have to acknowledge the working of light where the human being's every thought only applies to the one goal, to serve God and to live according to his pleasure. For this striving alone reveals where God himself is at work. For the human being draws divine strength to himself through his desire for God, and God will not let the faith of someone who fully trusts him and proves this through heartfelt prayer, through active neighborly love and a will devoted to him fall to ruin. Amen.